Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Resonance Future. I'm your host, Dr. Jinting Wu. Today, I'm truly honored to welcome a special guest, a gifted healer, artist, and teacher whose work has touched many lives, including my own. She practices a form of acupuncture called the alchemical acupuncture, which is rooted in the rich wisdom of the Taoist alchemy and the five element theory. Her approach is not only gentle and intuitive, but also deeply transformative. She helps people not only release symptom, but more importantly, reconnect with their own deeper selves, their body, mind, and spirit. And this I learned only very recently. Besides what she does in terms of healing, she's also a classically trained vocalist and also a creator of moving performance pieces such as the sacred Dakini dance and the thundering Tara. And her own journey from early childhood illness and challenges to profound healing and creative expression is also a true testament of the power of inner alchemy. With over 2 decades of experience in acupuncture and inner cultivation, she brings the richness of martial art, qigong, meditation, and sacred dance to her healing practice. Please join me in welcoming to the show Karla Joy Vandenberg. Welcome, Karla. I'm so looking forward to our conversation today.
Thank you so much. What a beautiful intro. I'm honored. Thank you.
So before we dive in, I just want to say I've had great fortune of working with you in the last few years, and each session, each opportunity I had lying on your treatment table was such a treasure for me. And just very recently, you shifted me in just one simple session. You shifted me from a state of perhaps a little depletion to a state when I just was filled with light. And I call that a home frequency. And we all
Hmm.
long to return home. Part of the reason we're doing this recording today is to allow more people to understand that it is actually very simple, yet profound to shift in that home state, the original state of our being. So I just wanted to say how grateful I am to your gift and to what you're offering. So let's start at the beginning. I'm very curious. The conversation today has been my own curiosity about your journey as well. In our conversation over the past couple of years, and also from what I learned from your public website, that your own healing journey was shaped by some chronic illness in early childhood and early child challenges. So, if you don't mind telling us a little bit about how those early experiences led you to acupuncture and the healing path, I think our listeners will really benefit from that.
Thank you. Yeah. So just kind of tuning in here. My life growing up was very difficult. It was very hard. There was many beautiful things about my life as well, but there was a lot of abuse, violence, really intense religious oppression, and I think also some genetic and epigenetic inheritances that were already going on in my body. I could spend probably days just sharing about all of those experiences. But I think the most important, the most sort of relevant thing to our conversation today is that, of course, our body, our energy body, our physical body, our spirit body, they're interlinked, right? There's an interconnection. And when we are going through traumatic experience or chronic health issues or both, because those will often go hand in hand, there is such an impact on us physically, right? We know now with all of the wisdom and the knowledge that's being shared more widely now, which is wonderful. We know now the impact that this has on our organs, that our body stores experience, it stores memory, it stores, and there's a way that we survive by compartmentalizing different parts of ourselves, right? And it's actually really amazing that our brain and our spirit and our nervous system knows how to do this. It's incredible. And we can thank ourselves for that, that we have that capacity to do that. So as I was growing up, particularly like throughout my teens, actually even earlier than that, there was a lot of chronic throat infection. So I was constantly on antibiotics because at that time, that was what doctors did. They just put you on cycles of antibiotics. And of course, there's a lot more knowledge about that now. But so my immune system was very depleted by the time I got to my late teens and my early 20s from the sort of oppressive experiences of my home life, the sort of punitive experiences of that. And then on top of that, the cycles of antibiotic and chronic illness. So by the time I was out on my own, like I went out to college, there was such a fallout that needed to happen, right? There was such a because I didn't have those systems keeping me in place anymore, even if it was in an unhealthy way. I didn't have everyone else to take care of and to distract me from what was happening inside my own body and my own being. And I had started therapy at like about 13, I think I was. I had started going to see a therapist, which I'm truly grateful for. It was an incredibly helpful, it was a real gift to have that experience with that person. And I think that laid some of the foundation for my later healing work because I work a lot with helping people, how do I language this? Helping people come back into themselves, find their own wholeness, find their authentic nature, their sovereignty, and their agency, even after going through extreme trauma, extreme health crisis, extreme levels of pain, that in extreme levels of wounding, that even if you have extreme levels of pain, whether that's physical pain or emotional pain or mental pain, it's not the end for you. It's not too late. There's, and this is, I think, that we often think that we have to be rid of something. We have to, or that we're somehow ruined by these experiences, or that we'll never be able to move past or through. And that just simply isn't the case. And that's what I love so much about this work. Basically, what happened was when I went to college, there was a really big fallout, and I had to leave school. My health was so compromised. I was in pain all of the time. My whole body was covered in hives. All my roommates called me Bubble Girl because I had to have everything I owned. The doctors told me, you're allergic to trees, you're allergic to grass, you're allergic to basically everything that's alive, all animals. Don't go outside. Cover everything you own in plastic because you're allergic to fragrance too. Use fragrance free everything, which isn't a bad thing, right? That's a good thing. But basically, live like in a bubble and don't interface with the world. And that was a really horrible way to live, especially being a young person, being 20, 21, and feeling like. So I ended up leaving school. I was performing full time. I love, love, love so much about that time of my life. I wouldn't trade it for the world, but I couldn't sustain daily life because my health was just so fragile. I had very severe panic attacks. I would go through periods where I felt like I couldn't leave my room for days at a time, oscillating between extreme anxiety and depression. And then to be honest, I hit a point where it was like, if this is it for my life, I don't really know how to be here anymore. I don't know if I want to be here anymore. So I understand things like when I work with people who have gone through suicidal ideation, things like that, I understand what that's like. I was in bed one morning and I woke up and I heard this voice. What do you call it? intuition, spirit, God, whatever you want to call it. There was, as clear as day, there was this voice that just said, there is another way, but you have to go find it. This isn't it. You have to go out and seek it and find it. And if you do that, you will, but you have to go do that. And you have to just not give up. But you need to leave this current situation, this current iteration of your life isn't working. So it was like basically the sort of download was like, do this or die. So it was a real crossroads for me. And I found out much, much, much later that I actually had Crohn's and that actually brought myself into remission. And I didn't find out until much, much later. So that's like a little bit of a little later part of the story because I knew I had some autoimmune things going on, but no one could figure out what was going on. So anyway, I hope that there was some thread that you could follow there because I felt like that was all over the place.
Yeah, no, it was beautiful. I think I was jotting down notes as you were speaking. I think many of our listeners, including myself, would find many points of resonance through your early experience. For instance, how many people are in the same situation where their doctor told them, eliminate this, eliminate that, just eliminate many things from their life. And I personally have friends in my circle who are like that. And you brought in the notion of epigenetics and that the environment in the outside, which then becomes the environment in the inside. We do we can eliminate things from the external environment, but what about the inner environment of all these, first of all, chemical imbalance from the prolonged use of antibiotics, right? It must have created some kind of a chemical imbalance. And then most importantly, emotional imbalance that shows up in our blood chemistry. And yeah, when our outer and inner environments are out of balance, things are going to show up in the form of disease, dis-ease, right? Away from ease, which is our home. But I was so touched. Life is interesting. Sometimes even when in a deep drench, there is still moments of joy. Like you said, it's horrible in the early 20s, but then you enjoyed it so much as a performer. So I love the complexity and the fluidity of things and the voice or the download, the inspiration, the whisper or the resonance that you caught a glimpse of that day and you truly followed it. Oftentimes we can say, okay, it's just a voice. And what was it a difficult experience for you to say? What was the experience for you in terms of following that instinctual guidance? Did you have any resistance towards it?
I think I've always been a very intuitive person. And even as a child, I always say this to people, even though there was so much religious oppression, I'm also very grateful for the experience of connection with faith. I was able to foster my faith and I was able to transform that and reclaim that later in life in a way that really is healthy for me and works for me. But I've always been a person of faith and I was a child of faith. That connection to the divine and that connection to how that is alive in me, I think has always been something that has been a thread that sort of carried me through everything. So I think having that and also in the even in the creative work, right? I think that also carried me because there's such a vibrancy and that can be also such a healing experience as well. Especially because for me, there was always a sense of service. How can I bring joy and love and harmony to others? Then I had to learn how to do that for myself.
Mm.
So when I heard the voice, it was actually, it reignited a sense of purpose. And it was slow. It evolved over time, but I left school. Now, this was like before internet, before Facebook, before social, right? It was before you could just Google something, which
Sure.
I'm actually really grateful for. I'm grateful for the fallout because the fallout is what led me to the next thing, right? It was my wake up call. And this is the thing about that we'll get to with alchemical healing is that your body, it can be your greatest ally. Even when it's struggling, it's trying to tell you something, right? I'm so grateful that my body did what it needed to do to get my attention enough that I could start opening and unfolding into a new possibility. So I was like, okay, what do I do? Like, there's another way for me to heal. I don't know what that is. I left school. Let me find a job. So I ended up going to work for Field, which was on Maple Road at the time. I worked in the deli. It was amazing. I learned how to make these incredible soups. There was these people there, these women who they're like archetypal wisdom keepers, right? Like they just took me under their wing and they showed me all of these like beautiful things. I learned so much about different ways of detoxing and different styles of nutrition and food as medicine. And this was my sort of deep initiation into that, into this, even just this idea that I have some say here, right? In what happens. And I can actually learn to heal my body myself, to heal my spirit, to heal my mind. So that was the first step. I met so many incredible people, even the people who would come in, like the customers. We would just talk. And over time, as I learned more and more, and they were like my greatest teachers because I learned through their experiences and through the things that they were doing and that their supplements and their vitamins and their food, their medicinal foods and different things for different people. I learned that really early too. And then over time, I was able to start really helping people understand, helping guide people right through this same process. Then I met some people who introduced me to my Native American teacher, and I was going and doing sweat lodges for a long time, which of course is incredibly supportive for the spirit, incredible for the body. It was just a beautiful community of people, and I'm just forever grateful that I had those experiences. And then around that same time was when I was introduced to medical
Mhm.
qigong, to meditation. I was actually introduced to as at a very young age by my aunt and uncle, my uncle's passed on, but was very close with them. And I used to go spend weekends with them at their house. They're meditators, Buddhist meditators, and
How
they taught
old
me
were
how to
you?
meditate. I was about 13.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah. And it was like an instant just love. It just felt so natural and so anchoring and so helpful. And I often say that to people now, like meditation it's one of the keys. It's a key. And there's so many different kinds, right? But it's so important. So all these beautiful, like kind of golden droplets, right? So then once I found acupuncture and qigong, and then that kind of led me to my current lineage, which I've been a part of for over 20 years, which I am just forever there. I just can't say enough about just the beauty and the gratitude that I feel for these practices. So this is the sort of foundation of my healing work is really rooted in this inner work, right? This
Beautiful.
inner alchemical work. So yeah, so that's my story. And I think one of the beautiful things about this work is that it just keeps going and keeps going. It's so interesting because people will often ask me, how do you do this all the time? Don't you feel like burned out? How do you like not absorb things from your patients? How do you like have that sort of oomph to keep doing this day after day? And it's because these other practices they just give me that foundation and that capacity. And I couldn't do it without that. I don't understand how people who can do healing work who don't have a inner cultivation practice. Yeah.
Absolutely.
And not as a judgment, just as there's no way that I'd be able to sustain it without that.
Right.
Yeah.
So I love the beautiful experiences that you shared. It's your journey itself is an alchemical process. There's so many things I wanted to say. When students are ready, teachers will show up. Right? When you decide to heed that calling to find a different path, even your customer at Feel Right becomes your teachers at points. And that exactly was my own experience when I had my own diagnosis and I went to you. And I just remember clear as day, you are one of the many teachers who sort of hone in the idea to me that disease is an invitation for you to shift the way you have been storing your life. And I think that this how
Mm.
we story our life, how we language our life, the kind of story we create about who we are becomes then that inner environment. Just change the story, change your life. And I love how your journey is truly experiential first, and then you pick up the alchemical acupuncture, which we'll segue into in a moment, to really help people, not from an abstract theoretical perspective, but from personal inner work. You have done the inner work and now you show up as a healer. And that's what I found to be most profound about your work. Every time I was there, I'm I from Chinese culture, and acupuncture is not unfamiliar to me at all. I've been exposed to it since before I moved to this country. But your style is very different, and I just was so blessed to have found your practice. So maybe this is a segue, if you don't mind, to tell us what is alchemical acupuncture and what is other things that make it unique and different from other approaches.
So I've been working for the past couple of decades, not only with my teachers in the Dragon Dharmapala lineage, but also with one of my mentors, Laurie Deshar, who I highly recommend her book, Five Spirits and the Alchemy of Inner Work. So she's been someone I worked really closely with also along the way. And so, what is alchemical healing, alchemical acupuncture? So, I think one of the most important keys in understanding what makes that unique is that it's very much about alchemy happens in the body. And often there's such a sense of, okay, we need to fix this, right? Okay, I have X and X problem. Fix me, right? Or we look at our body and we're so sometimes frustrated with our body or angry with our body or like, why is my body betraying me? Or why, right? And of course we feel that way because we're in pain, we're uncomfortable, like we're scared, all of these things. So it's very normal to have those thoughts and experiences, but we don't heal from an alchemical lens. We don't heal by trying to control and trying to stop and trying to separate ourselves or just take command of our body. Instead, it's a process and it's an ongoing learning. I'm still learning. I'm still doing this. I was doing it this morning to prepare myself to come on this call. It's there's specific tools and practices that help us learn how to go in to our inner landscape, to the body. The body it's our vessel, right? In this lifetime, here on the earthly plane, we live in a body. We have this matter that holds our spirit, that contains our sacredness, right? It's not that it doesn't expand outside of that as well, but there is a vessel. And in alchemy, when you think about alchemy, right, and you can look at the richness of these traditions from cultures all over the world, there's alchemical practices. So when you look at the richness of alchemy, right, there's always a vessel. There's always a pot or a vessel. There's a lid, there's heat, right? To transform, we need a container. So our body is a container. And if we learn how to embrace this as our inner laboratory, that to really go in, not just self care. So I always say inner work and self care are two different things. Self care is important. I'm not saying don't take time for yourself, do your rituals, do all those things. Those are important, but that is not the same thing as inner work.
Going back to what you said, the image you just painted for me brought me back to one of the classics in Chinese literature, The Journey to
Mm,
uh,
mm,
heard or know about it. They've been transforming by putting elements into this lid, this container with heat, and then in time it'll transform into something potent. and powerful.
Exactly.
And our body, if I understand you correctly, our body is that container.
Yes. So when we learn to honor the body, to listen, and again, there's in alchemical healing, there's specific tools and practices. One of them's called inner sensing, where you learn how to just, we've done it in the treatment room together. I may not have called it that. You learn how to go in and befriend and be curious about what's alive in there. So the sensations you're having. And when you go in and you really start to sit next to these things without trying to make them stop or go away, without rejecting them and asking them to hide again. But, and this is often where we learn and we begin to understand ways that we have split off parts or pieces of ourselves that we have contained to keep, usually to keep them safe from different points in our life, from childhood, from early childhood, even from birth. And also, we can learn to even tune into what I call lineage inheritances or karmic inheritances, depending on your language and how you think about those things. It's really this incredible process of going in and learning to work with and in the container of the body. And over time, this starts to become a safer and safer place, an inner refuge. Not dissimilar to when we practice meditation and Qigong, right? But even in some forms of meditation, there's this idea of catapulting out of your body. And again, I don't disparage or think negatively about any lineage or any tradition. You do what works for you. But in terms of thinking about alchemy, it isn't about going out there. It's about actually coming in and working with the body as a sacred container. And I think one of the other ways that you brought it up already so beautifully. One of the other ways is that we don't look at disease or discomfort as the enemy. We don't look at it as something that is to be feared, even though it can feel very scary and we hold space for that fear. We work with, even working with the elements, we are learning about and working with not just, okay, so this element, the water element is related to the kidneys, right? And the bladder and the bones. So we'll learn about, okay, the elemental correspondences to organs, to tissues, to body parts, to orifices, right? And how these things can show up in a very physical way or in a disease process. But then we also look at, okay, what's the spirit of the element in alchemical healing? So for the water element, that would be the zhi, zhi, the zhi. So the zhi is our will, our motivation, our will to life. You know, what is our will aligned with in our life, right? And when we have extreme fear, so the element associated with water is fear. But fear means in when you really understand the character and you look at the character and the poetry of it, it's much broader than just being scared or just being frozen. That can be part of it, but there's a full spectrum of experience. So again, instead of pushing the fear away and shaming ourselves for feeling fear or being swallowed by the fear or being addicted to the fear, we go in, right? And we feel where is that alive in us? And we sit with that. And when we understand the character in the full spectrum, fear is also wisdom. It's wisdom through experience. So that same fear over time can be, we can work with it and it can become our deepest knowing in our bones, are the wisdom that we know from deep inside of us. So we learn to work with, to alchemize, to hold, right? And it's not, okay, you do that once and then you're never scared again. It doesn't work that way. You learn how to relate with it, how to be with it. The way I also think this is like self-love. This is compassion applied inward. This is true compassion that you can hold this for yourself and then you're able to hold this for others. Yeah, there's so much I could say, obviously, but that would be, I don't know if that helps to clarify a little bit about
Absolutely.
what alchemical healing is and how it's different. So if somebody comes in and they've got, just to keep going with this example, they've got issues around depleted kidney chi or depleted kidney yin, yang. There's a lot of different ways of that can manifest, but yes, there's points that I can do for someone who is overwrought with anxiety or feels like they're drowning and overwhelmed and has just no motivation, and they're just their kidney is so depleted that they just feel like they have nothing in their tank. They have no vitality, no reserves. And right. And this can happen with overwork, with chronic pain, where we get with trauma response. So yes, when I learn my points and I look at my texts and okay, so a more allopathic approach or another maybe acupuncture approach would be like, okay, so for these symptoms, we do these points. Okay. It's not that's wrong, right? But from an alchemical approach, it's yes, okay, maybe I will use some of these points to support this person, but how am I holding the consciousness of these points? How am I applying or how is the even the language of the patient, the field, the energetic field of the patient, what they're saying, their own experience informing, you can hear the points. People come in, they tell you, if you know how to listen, they will tell you what they need. They will tell you the points that are right. And also, all of these elements and spirits work together. So maybe someone has depletion in this area, but they actually need support here, like their mother element, mother child. There's a cycle of the elements, right? There's not a singularity. You're looking at the whole picture. So if I have 10 people in a row who all have really extreme migraines, each of those people is going to have a very different treatment depending on them, their nature. What do they need? Where is this coming from? Right? It's not just, oh, for migraines, you do this. Right.
That's
Does that
beautiful.
make sense?
That's
Okay.
beautiful. It's helped so much. I've been seeing you for a while now, but this message just came home to me. Yes, you can still approach acupuncture in a more mechanical way and symptom matches points, and then the needlework becomes a mechanical formula of what to do.
Mhm.
But in what you were saying is it just resonates so deeply with me. Every time I went to you, just the consult, the initial few minutes, 10, 15 minutes of conversation felt very meditative to me. You often have your eyes closed, and I just knew that you were tuning in to not just the word that I say, but how my field is telling you, because the field has so much more information we carry that in our
Mm,
not only
yes.
moment in time, but as you said, lineage, generations of patterns, and that's all stored there. And you can't look at it from a formulaic angle. And I also so loved what you said about self love. And in that container of alchemy, I think transforming fear into love, even fear for an organ that is diseased or a symptom or a pain, that's the allopathic approach. We're afraid of it, let's remove it. Just the language of removal, I don't see it at all in your practice. There's nothing to remove because we are already whole. The process is, I'm reiterating, hopefully helping
Yeah.
audience to get it in a different way. The process is not about removing anything that is not right, but it's about alchemize it, about transforming it, about rearranging the foundation, the pattern, the blueprint. And that is not symptom release, it's long lasting. It's
Right.
changing the person from inside out, if I may say, because you go from a fearful personality to a personality that embraces the imperfection, and you see yourself as wounded, as traumatized, to accepting yourself, to loving yourself. And I have to mention one of my great teacher, Louise Hay, teaching people the power of self-love and the mirror work that she's using to have them look in the mirror of their own self and just say, I appreciate you, I approve of you, and I love you. And how many of us can say that? I knew I couldn't. It took a while for me to
Yeah.
come to that place, even though there is nothing fundamentally wrong about you. But those of us, many of us, women, mothers, and the societal expectations, we criticize, we get into that self critical mode. I think you touched upon Taoist alchemy and the five element theory so beautifully. Segueing into this poetic element in your work, you often speak about reclaiming the lost part. I think we touched upon that a little bit too, and it's uniting spirit and body, which both poetic and profound, reclaiming lost part. Can you share with us what do you mean by that?
Yes, of course. And this is a really is a sort of a continuation of what we were just discussing in our field here. So I talked about the je. So if I bring in a word, the shen, so shen is spirit, okay? And shen, so beautiful. I just I'm just taking a moment because I'm getting this amazing imagery and I'll share that. So the classic text, one of the images I love so much is the shen, our spirit, is like a red bird on a green branch, right? In the heart center. And if you think of shen spirit in terms of alchemical principles, that really connects with our nervous system, different aspects of our nervous system, and our psycho-emotional state and heart mind, right? There's a connection. So, as I touched on earlier, when anything that we experience in life as shock, as trauma, as extreme stress, what happens is our Shen has such compassion that, and such wisdom innately, it will fly out when we're going through something that's shocking or like really extreme, and we're not sure if we can survive that, if we can bear that, right? The Shen flies out, stays connected to us, right? We're still here, we're still alive. Shen is there. But what can happen over time is if the Shen has a hard time finding its way back in to the body, now we're dealing with dissociative states. Okay. And of course, there's varying degrees of that, right? That can be something as simple as just not feeling present or feeling a little bit numb or anxious or depressed or oscillation. And of course, there's more extreme versions of those dissociative states. We can get into addictive patterns. A lot of the alchemical healing work is about learning how to make a bridge or a pathway for the Shen to come back into the body, again, as a safe place. And this is what helps our nervous system to regulate and to reorganize in a way where we feel stable, centered, and we feel in our capacity to function and really live in our lives the way that we want to. When the Shen is out here, we may be like functional in terms societally. A lot of people walk around like that. And again, it's not about feeling bad about it or blaming ourselves, or it's hard being in a body on the earthly plane. And this can happen even throughout a day. We can go in and out. So when we're able to learn how to come in and unite the soma and the spirit, the Shen and the body, and that process I was describing earlier, where you learn how to go inside and relate with these different parts, often you'll find that if there are split off parts like the inner child or different aspects of ourselves, we find them in there. And when we begin to work with the messages, the sensations, and again, there's specific tools and practices to do this, we start to, over time, be able to, those pieces become reintegrated. So that may sound a little theoretical or conceptual, and it is, but it's also very, there again, it's a very tangible, it's tangible work. There's tangible practices that allow you to work with that. So that's really what that means. I often say when people are like laying on the table, the points are in, okay, there's ways that you can cue someone's consciousness toward that. So one of the things I might say is as the needles are opening, as this is like processing and cooking, even just holding that no matter what is happening, that we are whole, that there is room for everything that we are experiencing in this moment. And holding that idea of our body and our spirit's capacity to balance, to heal, to reorganize, to that we have this innate wholeness. No matter how we feel, it's there, it's present. Even just that idea can really help someone come into themselves and start to reorganize. So yeah, I think that's just a beginning. It starts to get at. Did that kind of get at your
Beautiful.
question?
Beautiful. I've never heard anybody explaining this. Yeah, I've learned a lot from what you said about the spirit being pushed outside. And we, in English, we have an expression, I'm beyond myself or I'm beside myself. And that
Yes,
you're beside
exactly.
your
Yes.
shin, your spirit, and your true home state. No wonder we have that
Yes.
happen.
Yes. I'm so glad you said that. It's so true. And people they'll tell you. It's when someone say to me the other day, I don't know. I don't know what's going on. I'm just here. I don't know. I can't even remember what happened. It's like you're here, but you're not. Like you're, and it does. Our Shen has to do with memory, consciousness, presence, our ability to be present, our ability to connect. If we're not connected here, we can't connect out here.
Absolutely. And then
Mm.
the part about curing the consciousness of the person as a healer, and I felt that too. Every time you put a needle in, you don't simply do it. It's not a mechanical thing of putting it in, but you always guide my consciousness to where it needs to be in that particular moment, which I find beautiful because in quantum physics, there is an observer effect, right? How you
Mm,
observe your body, how you observe the needle work, where you place your attention is where you place your blood, where you place your energy, where you direct your blood
yes.
flow.
Yes.
And now combining with the healer's consciousness, now your consciousness plays a big role too in guiding the consciousness of the patient on the treatment table. And I think that beautiful energetic dance or consciousness really from this morning's conversation was the essence of the alchemical process.
I'm so glad you said that because it's true. It doesn't happen in a vacuum. That's the other piece. It happens in community, in partnership, in that dance that you're describing. And the Shen responds to being seen. And that's what you're saying. Our consciousness, our Shen responds to being seen. So when I'm placing a needle or when I'm coming over to hold your hand and take your pulses, I'm not just holding your hand. Like, yes, your hand is sacred to me, your body's sacred, and I'm always holding that. But I'm also like, my Shen is seeing your Shen. And again, just thinking about it, just like you said, bringing your consciousness. Okay, now something else is happening. I'm not just doing large intestine 4 Hegu, which is like a very commonly used acupuncture point because it's an amazing point, right? It does so many things, but I'm not just putting it in for those alleviating those symptoms. Yes, I want to support the person in alleviating their symptoms. I want them to have less suffering, but it's also okay. It's not just large intestine 4. It's Hegu. It's gathering valley. So what is that? The gathering valley. It has its own wisdom, its own archetype, even the point itself. So if I'm tuned into the spirit of the point and the spirit of the person, now something else starts to happen that's more alchemical and deeper. Yeah. So thank you for bringing that up. And I really appreciate you sharing your experience too. It's really cool.
Yeah, beautiful. On that, I know that besides alchemical acupuncture, you also do a number of other things, such as the essential oil, flower essences, and teaching too. We'll get to that in a moment. Can you share with us what you do in the other domains of your work and how these different elements interact in terms of supporting the body in multiple avenues and
Mm,
come back through the gateway to
thank you. I love your questions. I really appreciate the inquiry. So I'd say the way that I work with flower essences, essential oils, herbs, supplements, it's an extension, an emanation of the alchemical work. Just so everything we've been talking about, it's an extension of that. So if I'm handing someone a formula, it's an invitation, right? I don't force. I never say, okay, for this, you take that. Okay, yeah, that might be true, but do you resonate with this? If you're open to it and you want, it's an ally, right? These things are allies. They also have, just like the points have their own consciousness, their own wisdom, their own archetype. So do the formulas, so do the flower essences, so do the essential oils. So if I'm going to apply an oil, I never just put it on. Even if I know, okay, say I know a patient likes rose oil and I've used rose oil on them before, maybe multiple times. Okay. Rose helps to anchor and calm the shen. It helps settle the heart, right? That's why it anchors and calms the shen. So maybe I feel, okay, rose is what I'm really feeling the resonance with this person today. But I never just walk up and put it on them. I always say, I open the bottle and I walk up and I say, just smell this. How does this resonate with you today? Do you like the way this smells right now? Because maybe that day they don't want that, and 9 out of 10 times it's what I'm feeling in the field is the thing that they want. Or maybe I feel like, okay, it could be this or this. I'm going to bring them both over and see how are they resonating. Because again, it's not about me doing something to them. It's an invitation for them to honor their own experience, their own body, their own authenticity. So they're allies, they're extensions of that alchemical work. So if I put the rose on, do I need to say anything or not? Sometimes in the mall, I don't need to say anything. I just put the drop on, or I'll go to the bottom of someone's feet and have people just like breathe into my hands because that anchors the shen into the body all the way down to kidney one, like we use in Qigong at the bottom of the foot, bubbling spring. Like it just, when you bring your consciousness all the way down to those roots, there's a shift that happens. So I don't know if that's answering your question, but even with the herbs, I always say that trust your body. Like, how is this feeling? Maybe even if it's uncomfortable, there's a sense that it's helping you, or maybe it's like uncomfortable and you're like, this doesn't feel right. Ever just say, you need to just force yourself through that
Yeah.
because when there's a response that's leading you somewhere, and when there's a response that's actually not resonating with you and not helping you.
Yeah.
And sometimes people have to learn how to do that, learn how to tune in that way. And that's part of my work too. How can I help you learn how to do that for yourself?
Like you said, if the shin is outside of the body for too long, they may not be able
Exactly.
to have that bridge to listen to
Yes.
the body's innate wisdom. And what I'm hearing from your words is that your practice is all about honoring the body. And if even if the body is a bit divided against itself, it's about inviting that wholeness to come back so the body actually knows. Yeah, I'm interviewing somebody else down the road, and her practice is all about the body telling this practitioner of what element is missing and what element is needed or it needs to be removed. And she does not do anything. It's all the body.
Kinesiology,
Yeah.
right? Yeah.
Yeah.
Beautiful. Beautiful. Love it. Love it. Yeah,
So,
you see this in different traditions and modalities. There's different ways into these same concepts. I love that there's so many different languages and modalities that kind of gets at the same principles. Is
and
wonderful.
this is not about going against conventional medicine, allopathy, but
Not at all.
I just wanted to pose this point. In conventional medicine, the role of the patient is very much diminished. You come in and you meet somebody in a white coat and they handed you a package of their knowledge, basically. And there is no conversation between that healer and the innate wisdom of the body. Like you said, even a rose essences, which was already in past experiences accepted, you still have to honor that particular moment by, hey, asking the body, it is what is needed at this moment. Through doing this podcast, one of my goals is really to have people look at medicine in multiple lenses, look at healing in multiple lenses, and really bringing the notion of self-healing into the picture, because if the patient does not participate, there is no role from the patient, the healing, the true healing is really difficult to happen. Would you agree with that?
Yes, and I so appreciate you bringing that in because I also don't want to give the message that I'm anti Western medicine or allopathic medicine because I'm not. I very much believe in that there can be a marriage of both and that each Western medicine has its strengths and it also has its limitations, right? And it's just good to be aware of that. So a lot of the patients I work with do both. It's important to put it into context. Like I'll often say, yes, that is missing what you just described. And there's so much medical trauma. I've heard story after story of things that were missed or misdiagnosed or dismissed. And I went through all those things too, layered many times, actually, especially when I was younger. And so again, that can be an important process for someone is healing those traumas and that wounding because can be really devastating. So I'm thinking of one patient in particular who is very much into alchemical healing and holistic healing, but also has sees several doctors. And what I'm always reminding her is Western medical, that world, like you're going to gather information. You are going to get this test and get this blood work. You're gathering information and just remember their lens. Okay. All they have their diagnostics, they have medication, they have surgery, right? Western medicine shines with emergency medical care, right? Thank God there's hospitals there, right? You go break your arm, you go to the ER. You don't come to the acupuncturist till after you go there and get your cast on or whatever, right? So that said, because so much of Western medicine is fear based, right? It's okay, you had this. Oh boy, you have to do this. If you don't do this, you're going to die. Or in my case, it was a lot of you have all these symptoms, all these really severe things going on. You're just really anxious person. You have hives and welts all over your body. You're just anxious. And it's your fault. There's nothing we can really do for you. You're just crazy. So it's like keeping it in context, helping you to use it as, again, an ally and a tool, not as something that is going to command your consciousness or teaching people how to not let that sort of what I call like they want to inject you with fear, like to not absorb or allow that to overtake you. And maybe you do decide to do Western medical treatment. If that's right for you, I'm 100% behind it. And then you can bring in the holistic to support and they can work in tandem. And then there's people who are just like, nope, I'm not doing any of that. And I'm, okay, great, let's do this. So it's, again, very unique to each person's entelechy and path.
Speaking of that, you've worked with, I don't know, so many people in your 2 decades of experiences. Is there one experience that has especially stayed with you? Something that maybe even touched you deeply or unfolded in unexpected ways? Just briefly.
My gosh, it's so hard to pick. I think the one that's at the forefront of my mind right now is I'll speak about her. She started coming to see me several years ago in her late 70s. And I was so touched by this because when she came in, it was like our initial consult. She said, yeah, I've told one other person this my whole life, but, I was like abused by my father. And I was wondering if maybe it's not too late for me to heal. And here's someone in her late 70s, right?
Wow.
And I just looked at her and I was like, I'm so moved by you and inspired by you because no, it's not too late. It's never too late. No matter what we have going on, no matter what we've been through, it's never too late. Anything is possible. And it doesn't mean that we want to get locked into attachments and what that's going to look like and be like, because that's another whole other rabbit hole of an issue that can happen. But that we can learn to come in, we can come into our wholeness, we can come into ourself in a way that is enriching, enlivening, empowering, resilient. And this is someone who I'm still working with all these years later. And it's been such a blessing. And there's so many people I could bring in. I've seen so many miracles. I've seen so many people turn things around that they were told they would never get better from, they would never be cured from. And that was me too. You're never going to, Karla, this is going to be you for the rest of your life. It's like wearing your glasses. You're just going to, this is just how it is. I don't have any of those. I'm healthier now at 48 than I was when I was in my 20s and my 30s. And that's because of this work. The things that I was experiencing before, these chronic, incurable things, are in remission for me now. And I do work with myself. I know what my body needs. I know what I need to keep myself in a place of health. So it's not like it just disappears and all of a sudden, like that's a sort of myth that people get trapped into. That I often say that to people too. It's not about, because people often be like, when is this just going to go away? And when am I just going to feel perfect? And when am I not going to have any challenges anymore? And I'm like, it just doesn't work that way. But these things can become your ally, right? It doesn't mean you're not going to heal, but it's even if you did everything perfectly in a day, whatever that means, even if that were a thing that you did everything perfect, right? You did your meditation and you did your qigong and you took your supplements and you ate your food and you got 8 hours of sleep and you got, and even that, right? It's a, okay, do I have my list? Did I do this right? Okay, so even if you do this huge giant list, you have zero stress in your day. None. Like no stress. You don't live in a vacuum, right? You're interfacing with the world, you're interfacing with the environment, the air, the earth, the planet, the consciousness of the planet, and the other people, the other beings, human and non human, that you're interfacing with. You can't control everything. But what you can do is learn how to respond, learn how to be with, learn how to thrive and have resilience no matter what is happening in your life and in your or within yourself. Yeah, sometimes you're going to have things are going to flare up. That's okay. That's part of the alchemical experience too. There's neg entropy and there's entropy. There's
Yeah.
neg entropy and there's entropy. And there's this movement, this multidimensional movement that happens. And we can learn how to work with and honor every single aspect of that.
Yeah. As they say, change is the only constant thing in the universe. Health is not a static point in time.
Yes.
I love the story of your client asking, is this too late? One thing I learned is you not only heal yourself, you heal your future and past generations. And to me, that used to be a vague concept. Now I know that my family, my extended family, our immediate family, they are all changing because of we have this family constellation. One element is changing, everyone is changing. So it's never too late to heal the lost part of us, and no matter how small that lost part is. And in some extent, I think that's probably one of the most important things we came to this life for, is to heal
Yes.
and heal one another. Speaking of that, I do still have a couple questions to ask you. We talked a little bit about this already. How do you personally stay grounded and elevated while holding space for others? But I would love to for you to answer that question by telling us a little bit more about the artistic side of you. Does that play a role in terms of giving you a container for yourself and by extension to your client?
Yes, definitely. I think I love that you're bringing this in. I appreciate it so much. I know it's on my website and it's a huge part of me. And I think that it's also a part of me that's like incarnating, beginning to incarnate differently. I took a step back. I have a 10-year-old son who's just my favorite person in the universe. And it just the logistics of life, running a full-time practice, teaching, and having a little one has been my focus. And it's been a little while since I've really done any performing. And that's coming back, that's resurfacing my work with mantra and chanting because I am a classically trained vocalist. I used to perform a lot of opera and musical theater, dance, fine art, anything I could get my hands on. I just love all of it so much. And I had to step back from it for a while because of what we were talking about before with the Shen and the dissociative state, because that was also a sort of easy, not easy, but a sort of way for me to keep myself dissociated was to really become these characters that I was playing. So I was very fortunate to play a lot of leading roles and things, but natural method actor here, I would just my whole life would become I would really be transform into this other being. And I just couldn't sustain that anymore. It wasn't healthy for me. So then fast forward when I started doing the alchemical work and becoming embodied and healing, and then also with my esoteric Buddhist lineage, which is the same lineage as my kung fu, my qigong, my meditation, even my healing work, my foundation is there. When I started really immersing myself in that and feeling the sort of power and the transformation of that, the performance, the creative, the expression came through. It started to come through in a different way. So then I created the Thundering Tara. It's a one-woman solo show, and it's me and my harmonium, and I just created a lot of music that's based around chanting, Himalayan and Sanskrit chanting. And then the sacred Dakini dance is also based on yogini and Tara and these incredible Dakini practices that I've been so fortunate to learn and practice. So I would say the performance side is almost like a natural, it's an expression of my love and my inner work. It's not the foundation, but it's an expression of. I would put it that way, that I really enjoy, and I love it because I feel that I'm able to share it with others through those mediums. Others who may not be necessarily want to be meditators or practice qigong but I can still share this experience and the energy through the performance. And I hope that it's healing for people. So a lot of the mantras have a lot of healing properties and benefits. So it's also an extension of my healing work, I'd say.
Yeah, beautiful. Me, it's all resonance because when you vocalize a musical piece, or even when you dance, it's about tuning in to a particular frequency. And I would encourage our listeners to check out your YouTube site where you posted some of those performance pieces, and it was beautifully done. Yeah, thank you. Carla, how can our listeners find you if they want to make an appointment for a consultation?
So I have a website, dovetailhealingarts.org. That would be the best place to find me. Yeah.
We'll put that on the show notes so that our listeners have a place to go.
Thank you. Yeah.
As we are closing, do you have any final thoughts that our listeners can take away from today's session? I know we have touched upon so many aspects of your work and of the larger aspect of inner transformation. Do you have any parting thoughts for us?
I think in this moment, what's present for me is that if there's people listening to this or watching this who this might resonate with, don't ignore if you feel like an inkling towards something or you're drawn to something or like it's so easy for us to just ignore things. Like we get lost in our busyness or we tune out because it's hard. Again, it's hard. It's challenging. So of course, but sometimes we get these nudges, these internal nudges, and that can be really life-changing. If you just follow those nudges, they lead you somewhere. And I think for people who are maybe just starting their journey or maybe have been at an impasse and are trying to get back into something or and just again, it's not too late or you don't have to beat yourself up. Oh, I waited too long or oh, I used to be into this and then I fell off or there's so many ways that we berate ourselves. We don't need to do that. You just start again. You just pick it up. You just go with it. It's okay. Don't give up on yourself. And your journey is important. It matters. It matters.
to you and to everyone else.
If I may summarize, that's from
Yeah.
going from tuning out to tuning in. All do such a great job tuning out in today's
Yeah, we
stressful
do.
modern life, but it's time for us to shift from tuning out to tuning in. And Carla, thank you so much for sharing your wisdom and your beautiful heart with us today. Your own journey is such a reminder that healing is not really about removing pain, but really about coming home to yourself, your
Mm,
heart, your mind, your spirit. And I know our listeners will carry your word both as an inspiration, but also as an invitation, which is truly why today's conversation is taking place, an invitation for them, for us to all explore that inner alchemy. So, for those of you tuning in, I encourage you to connect with Kala, explore her offerings, and experience the deep work of your inner transformation for yourself. And until next time, may you listen to the quiet truth within, follow the breadcrumbs of your own healing. And maybe today's episode is one of those breadcrumbs. And remember, you are always already whole. So, thank you so much. We'll see you again next time.
thank you.